Welcome to the Smart Weight Loss Coaching Podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa Olson, a board-certified weight loss medicine specialist and certified life coach. In this podcast, I'll share fresh insights and effective techniques for incorporating mindset, habit change, and proven science into your life. Are you ready to achieve sustainable weight loss, wellness, and longevity? Then let's jump in and lose weight the smart way. Welcome back. We've all heard that stress impacts weight and health. So today we'll delve into the details of how that occurs, along with ways to neutralize the impact of stress. Consider that stress isn't always a bad thing. In fact, we perform our best when we have some amount of stress, as long as it's not too high. Stress and the struggles involved in being human have been transformed over hundreds and thousands of years. In modern life, we're not trying to survive out in the wild, but rather we're often dealing with stresses related to traffic, job issues, and the large load of cognitive tasks we need to get through in a day. Health problems like starvation and infection have been eclipsed by type 2 diabetes, obesity, and cancer. In a way, these are man-made stressors causing man-made diseases of abundance and modern life. 50% of our stress is caused by what we call major life events, like divorce, loss of a loved one, loss of a job, or a personal financial crisis. The other 50% is caused by the smaller daily hassles that have the ability to pile up and disrupt our calm. Our allostatic load refers to the cumulative burden of chronic stress and life events. When external challenges exceed our ability to cope, we experience allostatic overload. Have you heard of cortisol, one of the stress hormones? Well, higher cortisol levels are a marker of allostatic overload. When it comes to nutrition, it turns out that even mild stress undermines our ability to make healthy food choices. Let me tell you about a fascinating study published in a neurology journal. Researchers studied over 50 young men who were trying to maintain a healthy diet and lifestyle. They were divided into two groups, but before they had separate experiences, first they all flipped through food images online and were asked to rate the different foods for taste and healthfulness. Next, the experimental group was asked to plunge one of their hands into an icy water bath for as long as they could tolerate it. This is known to cause mild psychological and physiological stress. Compared to the control group, those men had higher cortisol. Stay with me for the next part of the study. The men were then put into functional MRI scanners so we could look at pictures of their brains while we gave them different tasks. They were shown pairs of food pictures, of which one food was generally healthier than the other. They were told to click on the food they would choose to eat, knowing that they would later be expected to eat one of the foods that they chose. The men who recently experienced mild stress, the guys who plunged their hand into an icy water bath, were more likely to choose foods they rated as less healthy but more tasty. The higher the perceived stress, based on their measured high levels of cortisol, the higher their attraction to the least healthy, highly palatable foods. The most highly stressed out men had greater activity in the areas of the brain linked to enjoyment of tasty food. Also, they had less activity in the brain areas involved in long-term planning. In other words, the stress from the ice bath increased the perceived pleasure of the unhealthy foods and dampened their ability to consider the future or the impact of that food on their future health. So how does this relate to all of us? Well, think about it. After a day filled with job stress, we're more likely to reach for some candy, order a pizza, or pour a glass of wine. Our brains just aren't engaged with thinking about the future impact of these choices. This can lead to weight gain. In general, we know that psychosocial stress is an important modifiable risk factor for heart attack and congestive heart disease. In fact, stress ranks up there with things like high cholesterol, smoking, obesity, poor diet, diabetes, sedentary lifestyle, and high blood pressure. Here's the good news. You know I wouldn't leave you hanging. It doesn't have to be that way. We have more agency over our stress than we might realize. There's excellent research telling us various ways we might reduce our stress. One of the most important is to take action whenever you can find a sense of control. Where we have our locus of control makes a tremendous difference. If we believe we have the power to impact things, we do much better managing our stress. Let me give you an example. Let's say you believe that using visual imagery will help you address a serious problem, like a tough conversation you need to have at work. You can imagine yourself having the conversation and picture it going well. You've just offered yourself something you can control. You can practice that visual imagery and reduce your stress. I like to think of us as having a treasure chest filled with stress mitigators. You might have heard me talk about that before. We want to fill up our treasure chest regularly so we can draw from it when our allostatic load, our stress, is too high. If your stress is a labor of love, by the way, that has an impact. Imagine a caregiver involved in the long-term care of a beloved but debilitated parent. Because that's an emotionally meaningful relationship, we see no increase in mortality or premature death in these caregivers. It's only caregivers providing for others in an emotionally distant or even hostile relationship who have an increased risk of mortality from the stress of being a caregiver. Let's discuss exercise. Exercise is one of those classic tools we can use to decrease our stress. It decreases cortisol levels, decreases heart rate, and decreases our anxiety response to stress. The more we exercise, the better our heart and lung fitness, and that reduces how reactive our nervous system is to stress. In other words, being fit reduces our fight or flight response when it's not necessary to react so strongly. Exercise has been proven to mitigate cardiovascular disease risk factors, and it also curbs emotional distress, anxiety, hostility, and depression. Let's put exercise into our stress mitigation treasure chest. But first, just a few more nuggets about the type of exercise that will reduce our stress. One large study found that people who exercise regularly had 43% fewer days of poor mental health compared to sedentary people. The mental health improvement was strongest for those who exercised 30 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. Bonus points for group sports like soccer, basketball, and volleyball. A large Danish study found that the most effective physical activities to improve life expectancy were those that required 2 or more people to play. Play being the operative word. We live longer when we play tennis or badminton than when we exercise on a treadmill at a health club alone. Play reduces stress and helps us live longer, healthier. In addition to meaningful work, exercise, increasing your sense of control, and play, you might add a few more things to your stress-reducing treasure chest, including music, time outdoors in nature, having a dog or other pet, gardening, tai chi, time with friends, family, community, yoga, meditation, and human touch, like a hug. All of these things can be added to your treasure chest to increase your resilience in the face of a high allostatic load. By reducing the impact of stress, we're more likely to manage our weight and to live longer, healthier. Now, time for your NBA, your next best action. What are your stressors, and which ones can you control? What action can you take today to start to fill up your stress mitigation treasure chest? Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like more support during your smart weight loss journey, check out our group coaching program at smartweightlosscoaching.com. Until next time, stay well and stay smart.